The Coverage Genius Podcast, Episode 2. What's up, Genius Nation? I hope you're all doing well. My name is George, and I want to welcome you to the second episode of the Coverage Genius Podcast, where we meet and learn from amazing Asians from around the world. In this episode, we meet someone who is a really successful real estate agent. So, are you ready, Genius Nation? Well, then let's get started. Hey, Genius Nation! Welcome to the Coverage Genius Podcast. I'm so excited today, not only because this is the second episode, really the first interview, but I'll get to introduce to you my first ever guest. Known to many as Better Call Paul, I have for you today a true realtor extraordinaire. Many sellers have gone to him when their prior realtors couldn't do the job, even in a hot market like now, and many buyers have used his services to purchase the home of their dreams. So, without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce to you Realtor Extraordinaire and my good friend Paul Kim. Paul, say what's up to the Genius Nation and share one thing that people may not know about you.
Hey, George. Genius Nation, how is everyone? One thing that people may not know about me, I have a
dinosaur. What does that symbolize?
It was nothing.
Awesome.
It was a little random.
Awesome.
It just kind of happened.
Awesome. So Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so like you said, I currently primarily work as a real estate agent. My background prior to that, I worked at a few different tech companies in a sales role, and prior to that, I worked in finance in a sales role as well. Before that, Rutgers University, New Jersey, born and raised. Here I am. We are in New Jersey, the great state.
That indeed is true. New Jersey is a great state. But how did you get into real estate? You were doing startup tech companies. Why did you make the transition into the real estate business?
So I guess I picked a series of good tech companies, for better or for worse, after I got out of my finance job. And there was just like a series of acquisitions. I kept working for companies that got sold, which sounds great in theory. But when a company gets acquired, they tend to keep the engineering department and get rid of all the sales staff. So I just was like, hey, awesome, my company's doing great. Okay, I don't have a job anymore. That happened a few times. And then basically my entire family works in real estate. My father is a broker developer. My older brother is a real estate agent. My mother manages a portfolio of properties. So, as I like to joke, it was time for me to join the dark side and join the family business.
So how has it been for you? I mean, how long have you been doing this, and how has it been since COVID started a year and a half ago?
So I am just finishing on my third year now, and it's been good. I'm having fun with it, and I think that's really important to make it your own, and you really get out of it what you put into it. So my whole goal was to help people, meet lots of new people, and have a lot of fun. So that's what I've been doing. And yes, certainly we are working in interesting times with COVID, social distancing, PPE everywhere, COVID disclosure forms. So it's certainly been interesting. Honestly, I don't know too much about real estate not during COVID times, as I'm only rounding on my third year. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for me.
But I mean, a lot of businesses shut down when COVID, started, and a lot of people have been out of work, getting paid by the government and just not being able to find jobs. But you have been really successful during this time. COVID has had actually a positive effect on your business, I would think. It seems like it, looking at your numbers. I mean, how has it when COVID first started and things were shutting down? What were you going through? What were you thinking at that time? And as you've gone through the last year and a half, how has your mind and your thinking changed, progressed over this time?
Yes. So when COVID started, March of 2020, it was there was definitely this period of uncertainty, and I had a handful of contracts get canceled right in the beginning of COVID. My clients were they were business owners who they're just like, hey, it's not the time for us to buy right now. I don't know how my business is going to do. I want to cancel this deal, and just left and right deals getting canceled. And everyone I talked to, they were basically saying, okay, brace yourself for the worst year of real estate that we've ever seen. And it's crazy how quickly that changed for a lot of different reasons. The whole work from home thing, low interest rates, and people getting out of the city coming to Jersey. But it's not only local to the East Coast. People see it all around the country and all around the world as well.
What do you think was like that tipping point, though? I mean, you say like there are low rates or whatever, but like, was there, we're living in Jersey. I know a lot of people, even some of my clients, have come from New York City to Jersey. Why do you think that is or was?
I think a huge portion of it was that people started to work from home, and it doesn't matter whether you're an investment banker or whatever. If you're living and working in New York City, your home is not big enough. I don't care what you do, who you are, unless you're some billionaire with like a 10,000 square foot penthouse. And especially the fact that a lot of these people are making good money, and then interest rates are so low to boot. And they start thinking, hey, I could buy 3,000 square foot house in New Jersey and pay less monthly than what I'm paying for rent in Midtown. And I think that was a huge thing. But it's not only just people coming from New York to New Jersey. It's people in New Jersey in condos also moving to single family homes. So the New Yorkers come to Jersey condo folks go to houses, and it just kind of snowballed, and there was just a frenzy of buyers.
I think a lot of that also had to do with people being able to, like, wanting to walk outside, right? Because we were kind of in a lockdown, and pretty much people were saying, don't, like, stay inside. But, we needed, a lot of people, I think, wanted to get out into the outdoors. A lot of people even have moved from Jersey to other places as well, right? Mm-hmm. So that's definitely, I mean, this real estate market has been really crazy. What has been, so I mean, like, right now it's, we're in August. So we're kind of like, how have you done so far, from the start of this year to August? Like, how has your production been?
Really, really good. Staying really busy and very thankful. So just as an example, in 2020, full year, I did about $13 million in transactions.
Wow.
And I did $13 million in the first 6 months of 2021.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it's been really, really good. Now, I think one of the problems with such a mass exodus of people coming out of New York City and also from condos is people want to buy homes, but the inventory is kind of limited, right? Like, how do you go about, let's say if you had a client walk in the door and say, look, I want to buy a house. This is kind of my criteria. And that the inventory maybe is not as much as you'd like it to be. How would you go about through that process of guiding that client of yours into purchasing a home? Yeah.
So when buyers generally come to me, they have this idea of what they want, and it fits in a box, and it's a really small box. They're like, I want 2,000 square feet, 3 bed, 2.5 bath. It must be turnkey. I want to move in tomorrow. And so it's my job. Hey, would you explore certain towns that maybe you've never thought of or heard about? Would you take on a renovation project? Would you do this? Would you do that? And they come in thinking there's just one option for them. A good realtor will present 10 different options to them and kind of explain to them why we might have to go with options 2 through 9, why option 1 might not be available.
I mean, it sounds easy when you say that, right? But like, can you dive a little deeper into like that process? Like you get, I'm sure you've had a number of clients. I'm sure there may have been a few, maybe one or two or whatever, that have been a little difficult, right? That are just like so adamant about what they want and they don't want to budge. Give some tips on how to approach that type of client, because I know we have in our audience people who are maybe currently real estate agents or looking to come into the industry, yet they don't know anything with regards to relationships and relationship building. Maybe you can kind of give some insight and tips on how you would approach that type of client, or even a client in general.
Sure. So there certainly have been difficult clients, and I think it's a lot of it is getting them to understand actual perspective, right? So they come and say, I want a turnkey 5-year-old or newer house with 2,500 square feet, and this is my budget. So I'll say, okay, I found these houses for you. They're 50% more than what you're willing to pay. And then at the same time, I'll show them houses that are at their budget or considerably less. Be like, this house can be what you want. You just need to find a contractor and work on the house for 3 months and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I will take them to those houses. I will take them to a house that is way out of their budget, just to say, it would be really nice if I can get you this house for your budget, but it is impossible. Then at the same time, I'll take them to a house that just needs to be gut renovated. And they'll be like, oh my God, I've never renovated before. I don't even know where to start. And I'll say, well, I do. I have a list of contractors I can give you, and I explain them to the process. I say, you just show them a few pictures from Pinterest and Instagram, and they will make it happen for you. And I've had a lot of clients over the past year buy fixer-uppers, and they are definitely way happier than someone who stretches their budget to find something that they'll probably regret in a few years.
Well, they're happier because they actually put their input into actually building the home of their dreams, right? By researching what they wanted and getting that translated into the actual thing. I mean, it seems to me that one of your main objectives is to manage client expectation, considering like their stance with regards to budget and what they're looking for. You show them the reality, like you show them this is what you can get, but you don't have the budget for that. So maybe we have to come back to reality a little bit. And this is what you can have if you put a little sweat equity into it and then get what you ultimately want.
Right. Managing expectations, it's super important.
True. So what about like selling? I know, you deal with a lot of buyers, but I'm sure you also deal with a lot of sellers. I'm sure that's difficult too, because people are thinking that this is a seller's market, so they want top dollar for their home. How do you go about doing that? Like managing that type of expectation as well. Is it similar?
Yeah, it's definitely similar, and it's just a matter of painting the entire picture. If I'm working with the seller with unrealistic expectations, I'll tell them why that's unrealistic. So if someone's buying a house and they are buying it with a loan, with a mortgage, like whatever 95% of people do, there is something called an appraisal. So in order for the bank to give you the money to buy the house, they send a third party to make sure the house is worth that much. If a seller wants an unreasonable number, the house won't appraise, and the deal will most likely just fall apart if they're unwilling to negotiate. So it's just a ton of wasted time. The only way you can basically sell a house for more than it's worth is to a cash buyer who doesn't appraise a property. But like I said, that's a very small percentage of buyers out there. So I just have to tell my sellers, listen, you want a dollar that if someone is willing to pay, the bank's not willing to lend. You're going to waste a ton of your time, a ton of my time. This is going to sit on the market. The contract's going to fall apart, and just kind of paint the entire picture to them, show them the reality of the situation. If they find a realtor that will list it at that unrealistic price, they're probably inexperienced or they're desperate for a listing, and it probably won't work out best for them.
I see. Now you're doing real estate. You have a team under you, and how did you go about creating that team? Why did you feel like you needed a team? And how did you bring together a team to be your team under your belt? And how has that process been? Because there are a lot of people, real estate agents that I know, who are looking to create teams as well. So can you give some insight on that?
Yeah, so a team makes a lot of sense. So taking a step back, real estate is understood as a sales profession, but what I think there's like this big misconception. You're not selling houses, you're selling yourself. So most of our time or most of our productivity comes from selling ourselves in order to get a new client. And then you market the property to sell it. So if I just found that I was spending so much time on things that I don't have to be like highly skilled to do, right? Inspections and attending appraisals and like interfacing with towns and things like that. So what I did was, like many other people do, was I hired a team member, and a lot of those tasks I asked her to do, and I'll compensate her for that. So that way I could spend more time on dollar generating activities. So essentially selling myself, getting new clients. It's been, because it's so new to me, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and we're kind of learning as we go, and we're just kind of learning from each other. But it's been good. Yeah.
When you mentioned that, I think you mentioned a great point that we're not selling houses, we're selling ourselves. And I think people want to work with people that they can relate with, right? I think sales is very, like, the most successful salespeople are relational. They make those relationships rather than just selling, hey, I'm selling a product or a service and which you need, and that's it. Like, are you also kind of, when you're saying you're selling yourselves, are you creating like your own brand? Like, how is that going? Like, you do have Better Call Paul, right, as your Instagram handle. Like, how are you going about creating a personal brand so that people can understand like who you are? Like, how are you going about doing that, if you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think brand goes way further than a logo and your social media. I think for me, the way that I kind of envisioned this was like, what will people tell their friends about me? And so for me, it's when I tell people about what my quote unquote brand is, it's that I'm never late. Right? I'm always on time, or I'm always early. I'm super responsive. You text me or call me, whether it's 6 a.m. or midnight, I will get back to you within a reasonable time frame. And I always have high energy. And no matter what, if I'm having a day, you'll never know, because I always have a smile on my face, and I'm always just having a good time. So yeah, although people say, hey, oh yeah, Better Call Paul, that's his Instagram and everything. More important than that is I want people to tell their friends, like, yeah, man, I worked with Paul. It was great. He was never late, super responsive, and always smiling. So that's kind of how I'm trying to build my brand.
Is most of the clients that you get, is it through marketing or is it through word of mouth? Because it kind of seems like most of your customers or clients are through word of mouth.
It's definitely a combination of everything. And yeah, I get a huge chunk of it from social media, from people that I haven't talked to in like 15 to 20 years. I went to middle school or high school with, but we're Facebook friends and they see me. Obviously, referrals, word of mouth, that's a huge thing. But I work with a ton of strangers too. I do an extensive amount of cold calling. I talk to strangers every opportunity I get. When I'm at Starbucks waiting for my coffee, I try to talk to one or two people. When I'm at the mall, when I'm at Whole Foods, when I see someone with a nice car in a parking lot, I'll be like, hey, I like your car. Do you have a nice house to match? Well, if you don't, you better call Paul.
I mean, this is another good point that I think I would like you to expound upon a little bit is you do the cold calling. And a lot of people think cold calling is just picking up the phone and calling, which is, yes, that is, but it seems like you also take any opportunity, you seize any sort of opportunity that you can get. But a lot of people are scared about doing that, right? They have some fear. Can you give some advice on how to maybe approach that or do that in a way, where, people who might be kind of like hesitant about doing that, why you think they should, focus their energies on kind of reaching out to strangers and being, confident in doing that for their business?
Yeah, definitely. I think that basically you have to operate in your comfort zone. My comfort zone just happens to be very, 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 very big and wide. But people ask me all the time, like, oh, how'd you get this client? How'd you get that client? And I tell them these stories like, oh, I told the guy at Bloomingdale's, hey, man, I like your watch. And then he gave me a listing. I listed his entire building for lease. It was like a $10 million transaction because I told this guy I like his watch because I happen to like watches. And they'll say to me, like, I don't know anything about watches. I don't know anything about shoes. I don't know anything about cars. Like, what do you like? What do you do? And they'll be like, oh, I go to the gym. I'm like, okay, go to the gym. Talk to every single person at the gym. And you have to find your comfort zone, what you're knowledgeable about that's not real estate related, and make connections that way. And I think that's so important that people overlook just constantly.
I 100% agree. Like in my business, when I am introduced to a referral client, I don't go into the sales talk at all. I try to get to know about that person.
Right.
And most of my business is through like phone calls. I used to go out and meet people, but that takes so much time. Sure. So a lot of the times I'm on the phone call and, I just take probably at least 5 minutes. I don't talk about what I'm selling, but trying to get to know that person, mm-hmm. how their day is going, what have they been up to, what do they like to do. And I find that doing that knocks down a lot of walls.
Sure.
Knocks down a lot of barriers. And basically they see that I do care. Like I care about them and I want to help them with what they're doing on their next part of their journey. And I think I have a product and service that can assist. And it seems like that's actually one of the main keys in selling is becoming that person who people can relate to. And I totally agree with what you said about working in your comfort zone. Talk about things that you know, right? Because people, once you talk about stuff you don't know, people have like this radar and they're going to know that you're just like talking out of your butt and not being genuine. So I think that's a very, very great point.
Yeah. And just to kind of expand on what you were saying about not or how face-to-face can be time consuming. It certainly is. There's no doubt about it. But I think a good like real estate agent, as an example, almost every opportunity should be one to meet someone. So I'll give you an example. During COVID, I have a cat. His name is Bowie. He's really cute. I took him to the animal hospital, and they take your pet inside, but you wait in the parking lot in your car. So I was like, how long is this going to take? They say, oh, maybe like 20, 30 minutes. I was like, okay. I look around. There's like 15 cars in the parking lot. It's like, well, I'm not going to just sit in my car and play on my phone. I grabbed 15 business cards. I knocked on every single window. I say, hi, I'm Paul. I have a cat. His name is Bo. He's really cute. I live in Paramus. We're in Paramus. I'm a real estate agent. Let me give you my card. If you're thinking about buying or selling, let me know. And I got a listing out of it. So
just basically 20 minutes of your time of just going to the people that are like literally right around you produced a result.
Yes.
I mean, and you made money off of it,
yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know if you guys out there are looking for a type of job where you can actually not spend that much time and get a huge result out of it. I mean, obviously being a real estate agent does take up a lot of your time because you do have to do a lot of things, but to getting that result of getting that client, I mean, this is a great industry. It's, but I mean, there are a lot of real estate agents out there. And what do you see is, I mean, real estate is such a great opportunity to make money, but not that many people are doing well in real estate.
Right.
Why is that?
So, yeah, the statistic as it goes is 7% of agents make 93% of the money. And I think the reason being is becoming a real estate agent, there's such a low barrier to entry. You take a class, it costs you $400. You take an exam, it costs $45. You pay your union dues, it costs $200, and boom, you have a license to buy and sell real estate. And it's almost seen as like a fallback career. So people fail at other things. If you look at every single agent on $1 Million Listing in New York, their whole story is like, oh, I moved to New York to become an actor. I failed. Now I sell real estate, billions of dollars a year. So, and that's very common amongst everyone. Like, hey, why are you a real estate agent? It's like, oh, I sucked at my last job, but I'm killing it here. But yeah, I think it just has to do with there are too many real estate agents because it's so easy to become one. And it's super easy to get your license, but they're not willing to put in the work. They're not willing to take those leaps of faith and talk to the strangers that you need to succeed. They want it to be easy. They want they want easy, quick cash, and this is not easy, quick cash.
I want to talk a little bit about investing in real estate. Do you have experience in doing that?
Yeah.
And let's say, someone wants to go into that realm of investing. What do you recommend a newbie person who has some capital and wants to invest in real estate but doesn't know what to do? What would be some recommendations that you can make to that person?
Yeah, so certainly it's probably just pairing up with a good real estate agent who has experience in that realm. And so, yeah, I get asked that question a lot. Well, I get asked this question a lot. Like, why should I invest in real estate when I can buy Apple stock and make 15, 20, 30% a year that it's been averaging over the past few years? So the answer to that is leverage, right? So if you're buying $1 million house, you're not paying $1 million, you're putting 20% down. So a $200,000 amount of cash gets you $1 million asset that generates 5 to 6% a year. So in reality, you're actually making like 25 or 30% on your cash, not just 5%. But when you work with like a brand new real estate agent, they don't know that answer and they don't know what to look for and they don't know how to help you. So I think a question, so like as an example, when I'm working with new investors, I go over like, what's your risk profile? How much work are you willing to do? What kind of cap rates? What kind of returns are you looking for? Who's going to manage the property? Where is it okay? And so on and so forth. And yeah, I just think you have to work with an experienced real estate agent to help you find these opportunities.
Awesome. I think you've really talked about a lot of great points. And there are a couple of things that I want to just re-mention again because I thought they were really great. When you're working with a buyer and a seller, you want to manage expectations, right? With buyers, you want to paint the entire picture. People want certain things and they only have a certain budget, but maybe that budget is not enough for what they want. So it's kind of like painting a entire picture so that your clients can understand what they really can do with that budget that they have. And actually walking them through the process of maybe you can't get the house of your dreams, but you can get something that you can work on to make into the house of your dreams. So managing that expectation, showing the reality, and walking and leading and guiding your clients through that process to reaching the end result. I think that's a very important thing that you mentioned. Another thing is that I thought was important was, we're as a real estate agent, you're not selling houses, but you're selling yourself, right? And kind of like you're selling your brand, right? Why should people work with Paul and not someone else? Well, because you're never late. You're super responsive. You have high energy. You are known to have these characteristics, and this is what clients want. They can always rely on you being, never being late, always being responsive and having high energy. And that eventually, as you consistently do that time and time again, becomes your brand and who you are. So I thought that was pretty cool. And your recommendation of, for people who want to get into the real estate business, or who just are, newbie real estate agents, how do you get clients? You said really to work in your comfort zone, right? Work in your comfort zone, meaning go to places. Let's say, for example, you said if you like working out, go to the gym and speak to everybody in the gym, be friends with them. And don't talk about sales, but talk about, weights and working out, and you develop these relationships. And then eventually those relationships are formed based on trust. And then when someone trusts you, they'll work with you. I think you gave some really great points in this podcast, and I know we can be talking on forever and ever. I'm going to have you back. But before we go, I just want to give you the floor and just give you an opportunity to share maybe something, a piece of advice or something that's on your mind that you would like to share to the Genius Nation, and share with us also your handle and how people can reach out to you if they need a real estate agent or they're looking for some guidance and advice. And then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, so I will say, so let me say this. Once I started posting all of my transactions and activity on social media, just like in the past 12 months, I've probably had 15 to 20 friends reach out to me about, becoming a real estate agent. And the first thing I always say to them that this is not quick cash. You have to work your ass off and it takes time. So I want everyone who is thinking about a career to understand that you should have a buffer to not have any income for a few months. So like as an example, real numbers here, my first 12 months, I made $11,700 my first 12 months of real estate. And then, this year my gross commissions will be close to 400, but don't forget that first number. 11,700 is what I made in my first year. So it takes time, it takes diligence, it takes patience, it takes hard work, and it's going to take time to build, but once it builds, it starts snowballing. So yeah, that's advice to new real estate agents or prospective real estate agents. It takes time. It's not quick cash. Yeah.
That's for sure. Great insight. I just want to thank you again for just joining us on this second podcast, but really first interview, and just coming here and just sharing just a little bit about yourself and about the real estate business. And I definitely want to have you back again soon to talk about some other great things that you're working on. So thank you for coming by. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, George.
Well, Coverage Genius Nation, we're at the end of another episode. If you hung around until the end, then I want to truly thank you for sticking it out with us. I'm just beginning my journey into podcasting, and I'm sure there will be a lot of mistakes made and a lot of lessons learned. But I'm also sure that if you stick along with me throughout this journey, you'll definitely get something out of it. Trust me. And if you haven't already, please like this podcast and subscribe, as it helps get this podcast out to others. And if you know someone who you think would be a good fit for the show, send us an email at coveragegenius@gmail.com with as much info as possible, and maybe I'll reach out. Hey, You never know. So thanks for stopping by, Genius Nation. This is George saying to you, I'll see you next time.